Okay, we are live. Oh my goodness. So it might look a little bit different because we're together in person. So, first off, welcome to another episode of the Kingdom Brood podcast with myself, Randy Mendez, and my partner in crime, Crystal Riley.
So excited we're in person.
We are in person, and we might be in person begrudgingly because we like our homes and we like our comfy computers and we like to be behind the screens. But we have felt like this has moved from a passion project and something that was like, okay, fun, to God saying, do it bigger, do it better, do it bigger, do it better. And we are going to have a lot more things coming down the line, but we're starting with being in person and, loving this total vibe where I can't be in pajama pants anymore, Crystal.
Nope. So I put pants on today.
Yeah, she has pants on. I'm still in biker shorts. So, all right. Well, what are we talking about today? Today we are going to be talking about the fact that God calls us to be masters of our emotions, attitudes, and choices. So we're here for it. We're here for the conversation. And I think we're also here for the transparency of the realness of how hard that is, right? I just shared with Crystal before we went live that I didn't share the whole story with you. So I decided to spend the night with my mom, and we're big Yellowstone junkies. Have you watched Yellowstone? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, then we watched 1823.
I have not watched
that. And now we
yet.
moved on to 1926.
Okay.
Okay. I was not emotionally equipped for 1926. No.
I haven't seen any of it.
No. Heavy stuff.
Oh.
Heavy stuff that they work to try to make it historically accurate. And so in working to try to make it historically accurate, they did things like I had no idea certain things happened to like Native Americans. So you know me, it's 3 a.m. I should be sleeping. I'm on my 5th episode and I'm Googling, is this true? And I'm finding out stuff that's true. And so it's like the heaviness is starting to sit with me in the middle of the night, right?
Yeah.
And then God is like, hey, you didn't pray. He like put that on my heart, which typically wakes me up and I've at least slept a few hours before we're having that conversation. But now I've got the heaviness of like the reality of our history and I'm still awake. And it's just it's always different when you're not in your own house, in your own bed, right? And so all of this stuff is going on. And I'm just like, all of a sudden it like hit me like, and in it, they lose a child, right? They lose a child. And it just portrays the reality of how often you lost immediate family members and how hard life was. And that started sitting with me. So then my anxiety is like kicking up. I really never did sleep. And then by like 6, I was like, okay, now it's time to check if all my adult children are breathing. And this is what I shared with Crystal as I'm trying to I'm trying to learn to control my emotions, not have a panic attack, right? Mm-hmm. And simultaneously trust God, because that's part of the process. And in reality, I just wanted to go shake every one of them, right? And then one's door was locked. And I knew if I like pounded on the door, that's one step closer to them moving out because their mom's a lunatic and I don't want that to happen. So I had to pace myself. So anyways, I shared with Crystal as we went into this topic, just being so transparent, like I had been praying over it and I'd been saying, God, give us wisdom and discernment and give us the right message to speak to our audience. And the thing that I love about God is he's like, I'm going to make you a hot mess right before you go live so that you can be really real with this. So here I am.
So here we are. Mm-hmm. So I don't watch a ton of television, but I did start watching Suits because somebody told me to start watching that. Okay. So I started first, and then I did not last night. I was only up until like 11 last night, so so thankful. But the first night I turned it on, I was up until 6 o'clock in the morning also.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah, well,
so we both pull these all night, right?
Yeah,
right.
Once you get in it, then you're in, right? Yeah. I mean, who does that?
Yeah.
Give us a shout out. I do it too.
Yes, I know. We can't read the comments, so I don't know. We're gonna have to like hire a behind the scenes producer to like read us the comments because I love when you guys talk to us while we're live. I love that. So go on.
So please feel free to comment while we're doing this, even if we don't respond.
Yes.
Just, let us know because we will read
words
them.
of affirmation.
You give Randy words of affirmation. She needs it today.
Always.
So with controlling our emotions, God's been really good to me, and I've really learned how, and it's a learned skill over a lot of time of just continuing to surrender and to trust and to let go. But I will tell you, my daughter's boyfriend is a firefighter, and he went out on a fire, and I wasn't having anxiety, I wasn't thinking about it too much, just prayed around him, making sure he's safe. And then his mom texted me and says, hey, has Kaylee heard from you know, her boyfriend. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Oh my God. You know,
Right,
then I
right,
text my
right.
daughter and she hasn't heard from him since Saturday. And then, but then I was like, oh no, get that under control. He's fine. And I just really had to pray for that peace.
Yes.
But I'm sure his mom hadn't heard from him since Thursday. So imagine as a mom, you
Mhm.
don't hear from your kid on a fire since Thursday.
Right. And
So-
and like, this is more of a realistic, like, thought process, right? Like my kid, and that's what I was like when I was talking myself off the ledge. I was like, he's in bed. And so my husband wasn't supportive, is the way I wanted him to be this morning, because he's like, he went to bed and
He's
they're fine. They're all in their bedrooms. They're fine, right? So this mom, I mean, I could, you know, out
There's
there
no
fighting
control. You
fires,
have to-
there's no
there's
right.
nothing
You have to
have
surrender. And that's, I think that was, you know, again, and I share these silly little moments that I have, you know, in my flesh, but it goes back to, I mean, and obviously I've went through some really big stuff, right?
Mhm.
And I think that my silly little moments are actually trail ends of post-traumatic stress
Oh, absolutely.
from sitting bedside with the child in the hospital, you know, for years and years and years. And so I think it's just a matter of like that fear that there's going to be that next big diagnosis or that next big prognosis, right? And I think it goes back to the surrender. So that's literally, it's so funny you say that, because that's what I was saying today. Was I was sitting there in the bathroom and I was just kind of like, and that's what I did when we were waiting for the biopsy too. I just stayed in complete surrender, and I was just like, God, this is yours. Like, you know, you are. I just, Luke 1:37, right? For with God nothing is impossible, and I just kind of surrendered that. And I think that that is the caveat. And the first thing we need to do is, like, when we want to take control of our emotions, we want to take control of our actions and our choices, we have to learn to pause
Mhm.
and to respond but not react. Right.
Mhm.
And so it was like, I know it sounds small, but for me it was a baby step of more of a response of like, hey, once everybody's awake, just saying, hey, is everybody good, is a way I can respond, versus 3 a.m. bolting out of my mom's house up to my house and like waking everybody up, right? That's reacting.
Right.
So I think that that's like step one,
Yeah.
is really
absolutely.
learning to, but you have to learn to sit with that.
But yeah, I was just gonna say, how do you like, you have to acknowledge it
Right.
first, right? You have to
Right.
understand that there's a problem first.
Yep.
That's your first
Yep.
step, is acknowledging.
Yep.
So acknowledge, and then, you know, that flight, fright, no,
Mhm.
fight. I never get it
Fight
right.
or flight.
Uh-huh.
Flight. Is
I
there
never
another
get it
one?
right. Fight and freeze.
Oh,
Fight,
there's
flight,
freeze too.
Flight and freeze, I think. And so I was listening to something this morning, and it was talking about, like, you know, instead of just reacting to something, you like take a step back and stop reacting, because most people
Mhm.
are reaction oriented. And so if we actually just take a step back, process through like what all the things are, you know, there's some steps to do it, and then actually responding,
Yeah.
right? And that's really acting within control, right?
Mhm.
And thinking things through. But it's hard because it's really easy. So this morning, as the mom was texting me, and I kind of had a panic, and I'm like,
Right.
oh no, just stop. I know he's fine. Like, God already gave me peace. This isn't
Yes.
the fire that's going to take him out, you know?
So let's pull that out though for the listeners. So I think that that's a critical part, is praying for the peace.
Mhm.
So I think the first thing is knowing that it's okay to have these thoughts and emotions,
Mhm.
right?
Oh, absolutely.
And not feel, I mean, just because, like, obviously, you know, I know this afternoon, without a doubt, I will be the joke at dinner tonight. Everybody will be laughing at me being crazy. And I've learned to like take that, you know, with a grain of salt. Like, they're not being mean, right? But I had to give myself permission and and grace, and say, it's okay to have these thoughts. It's okay to have these moments. It's okay to have these panics, whatever they are, right?
Right.
And then we have to learn to pause and pray in them.
Mhm.
And I think that that's where sometimes we, in our flesh,
We get wrapped up into
we get, yes. And
So who gets wrapped up into that stuff?
Right.
Let us know.
Yeah. I mean, you know, is that something you've struggled with, is the pausing? And here's the next thing. One thing that I will say is so amazing is, as you do this. So, I mean, I'm several years into this, right? Like, this is, I guess, I don't know, an episode I don't have often. I used to have all the time, right? 5 years ago, it was like every single day there was something in my day that triggered these kind of emotions. Whereas now it's very far and few in between, right? But one of the practices that I have had over that time is learning to sit with things, because, oh my gosh, did I experience transformation in when I'm responsive versus when I let God work in me and then I react. And it's such a crazy transformation to go from, I just forgot what I just did, something super simple the other day. Oh, I told you about it. I went to a local event and there was nothing wrong, nothing bad happened. But I was like, I didn't pray before I went in the event enough. I didn't sit with God and I didn't let him prepare me so that anything that came out of my mouth was his response and not my reaction. Remember I shared with you my reaction was that I want more conspiracy theorists in my life in front of an entire room full of my industry peers. That's what I got out, right? But I was reacting because, let's be honest, I was uncomfortable. I was out of my element, right? I'm a super casual girl. I prefer no shoes and biker shorts and comfort in my home. And we were in fancy land and lots of dresses and high heels and amazing women, but it just wasn't my jam. It wasn't my cup of tea. And I didn't stop and pause and put that protection of prayer in my mind and in my life so that I showed up at that. When I went on the front of the room, the thing that bummed me out is that who God has made me today didn't show up because I was sitting in my flesh.
Yep.
And I didn't put that protection on me, right? So, I mean, do you think
it's amazing when we are actually prayed up and we surrender something, and then how we show up. I show up differently, right? Crystal in the flesh is not super cool, just in case you're wondering. Totally not that cool. And the stuff that comes out of my mouth, I question sometimes. I was just telling somebody I went to an Offspring concert, and my friend's married to the lead singer.
Oh, really?
We had backstage passes, and Offspring's coming in, and so we're backstage, and he comes up, lead singer, by the way, and he comes off the stage. He's walking off the stage towards me. He's like, "Hey, Crystal, what'd you think?" I'm like, "I hate your music," and I just went, "Oh!" I said that out loud. Oh my gosh, like flesh, total flesh. Anyways, he still likes us. But I just was like, well, my husband really likes your music. That's how I show up in the flesh. Right, so right. I need to make sure that I pray before I go and do things, because insert my foot in my mouth and it is all bad most of the time. Because I don't have a filter. Yeah. So God helps me see things differently. I think more before I speak. I don't react, I respond. Right. I engage better, all that stuff. And so I really need to be prayed up before I enter any situation, honestly. So
I think that that's a huge takeaway, being prayed up. So there's a quote I always think of. And since I obviously have a weight, I just told Crystal a minute ago, I was like, I don't know what analogy I use, but I used to, like 12 pounds is like the Titanic on me. I'm so short. Yeah, a baby elephant. Yes, that's what I said. But no, I'm not kidding. Just wait. I'm going to lose 12 pounds. And in like 3 weeks, when I lose 12 pounds, you're going to see the difference in my body. But there's a quote I always think of as I'm going through the battle of obesity, which is stay ready so you don't have to get ready, right? I am often in the phase of getting ready to lose weight, getting ready to get it together, getting ready to give it all I have, right? And then things come up and I'm like, I don't want to do that because I'm not ready. I'm getting ready, right? So I think of it, and it's so funny because a light bulb hit when you were talking. And it's like, I think that that's one of those worldly quotes that we start thinking like, okay, so me, worldly, get ready so you don't, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I immediately go to a flesh identity component, which is my weight. Like if I would just get this weight off and I would be at the weight that I'm comfortable with, which is still a big girl, then I could do more. But that right there is not a healthy thought process. Ooh, because getting ready is an internal thing, right? So when you said prayed up, I mean, I can be today, this weight, this hot mess. I can be everything externally and everything in the flesh and be prepared if I'm prayed up. So to be prepared, we need to be prayed up and not worldly ready, right? Right.
But it's really easy to be worldly ready. So yeah, I mean, it is a huge shift. I have a weight issue also, and I've lost a little bit of weight, or deleted. I like to use the word deleted because
she doesn't want to find it.
I don't want to find it. Okay? I don't want it coming back. I want it gone forever. So I'm deleting the weight. I learned that from a great friend of mine. And so I like coming on here, we had all kinds of like, oh my gosh, can we angle the camera different so we don't focus on our belly?
The right angle.
We don't have the right angle. So you are getting us a lot of our flesh in our unfiltered. And so but it's hard. It's like, how do you I mean, you have to be prayed up, right? You have
Yeah.
to surrender to God. You have to choose to let go of all of the fleshly stuff, all the worldly stuff, and it's hard. It is so hard.
It is. And well, and I think that it's, something I have to remind myself to, in order to keep control of my emotions and my choices, right? Because I think choices is a really, really tough one to stand in, right? Like I've recently made some business choices that I've kind of wrestled with a lot. Like, did I make the right decision? Was that the right decision? And most times when you're running a faith-based business, you will make decisions that look almost disastrous to the world when you're making them for the kingdom, right? So running a kingdom business looks completely different. And so I think that, we've identified number one is surrender, right? Just live in that posture of surrender, that continual surrender. My honest to God truth, I got out of my mom's bed at 3 a.m. After I harassed her a few times. When you watch the 1823 or whatever it is, you'll see that they nicknamed the daughter Yellow Hair. And so I was stroking my mom's hair as she was sleeping, and I was like, Lori, soft hair. She was like, leave me alone. So anyways, after I was like done harassing her and playing with her, I was just sitting there again heavy, and I got out of bed and I dropped to my knees and I just started praying, right? So first that surrender, then that time, because God, he's working in our waiting. The thing is that we want to be like, and don't get me wrong, he works in all things. So we can pray as we're walking into the meeting, like, God, take this control, take it. And he will. But there is something to be said for having that intentional time with God and allowing him to work inside of our waiting, right? And allowing him to stir inside of us the right things and give us the insight and the wisdom. When I take something to him ahead of time and I let him sit with it, I'm always so much more prepared than when I take it to him 5 minutes before, and then I'm trying to decipher what's him and what's me, right? So we have surrender, and then we have sitting with it and praying. And then I think the next component is, of course, owning it, but that goes back to understanding our identity, right? And here's the thing that is really freaking hard as women in the workplace is we can be in seasons of loss or seasons of less, and we can look like we're in a losing season in business and be in a winning season in the kingdom.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's tough.
And looking at it from a world perspective, you wouldn't think that it would be a winning position.
No.
And I mean, God calls us to do things, even the hard things, right? But he walks us through it. He goes before us, he's after us.
Right.
I mean, so he's in all of the details. And if we can get to a place of that full, true surrender and we allow God to work, I know I'm in a place where I'm just like, seriously, God, like time's ticking. And so, but it's really hard to be into that place. But I know his promises on the other side. He's an abundant God, right?
Right.
And I just have to have that surrender and allow him to be in control and allow myself to control my emotions, right, and surrender them to him and take all the scripture thought, all your thoughts captive. I'm not very good at that. I'm much better, but so.
Well, I think that's a powerful prayer. So sometimes, the question I get is like, well, how do I even begin praying, right? And I'm so thankful that people bring us those questions, and please bring us your questions. We don't promise to have all the answers, but we do promise to pray on them and to seek wise counsel and to answer them to the best of our ability. But one thing is, when it comes to praying, what the heck was I talking about?
I don't know. I think she was saying something about how do you start praying? I don't know. Holy Spirit help. That's what I guess.
Yeah.
Holy Spirit help.
There was something you said that I was just going to say, like, and it was the gist of that was that it's simply having the conversation, right? It's simply having the conversation. And then it's remembering too, that the bulk of our life is not for us.
Eternity, right?
Right. But even our time on here in the world is not for us. It's to do his work. And how can we do his work if we don't have a testimony?
Yeah, we've got a lot of testimonies,
right?
So I think tapping out.
She's tapping out, but I mean, so years ago,
an easy life,
right? But years ago, I'll never forget. I raised my kids in Calvary here in Reno, and Greg Laurie and his wife are, I think they oversee it. They have Harvest America. Anyhow, whatever. I was listening to Greg Laurie, and somebody asked him how he could still love God so much after losing his son. And he shared that how would I ever expect to inspire someone to follow God if I went through no hardships? If I lived a perfect life, how would I be relatable, right? And I think that sometimes we lose sight of that. I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that we really are here to be a testament to other people and to be an example to other people and to help other people navigate their storms and their journeys. And so when we tie that back into business, right? How many times have you looked at somebody in business and you thought they're just so like I could never, like their success is so far off and they're so polished and they're so refined and they've made the right money moves and they've done all the right things, and it doesn't even make you feel like there's a shot at it.
But they have stories behind it. They didn't just.
But that's what makes it powerful. What makes it powerful
is the story,
right? And so, how many times have you thought about somebody and you just thought, and then you heard their story and you're moved? So it's not actually their successes that moved you, but it was the way that they got through that, right? So I think that that's what we miss. We miss that. We miss the power in the actual journey, right?
Yeah.
And we forget that. I mean, I've had to remind myself in this season. You and I are both in real estate, and the market has shifted in many, many ways, and it's become tough. And, I'm fortunate to have multiple streams of income, of which multiple of them are tied to real estate. So they're all kind of hurting. And so I'm going through different emotions. I'm going through different things. I've made a lot of hard decisions in my business that on one hand I can stand proud on because they were hard decisions. But at the end of the day, they were the wrong decision and they caused a lot of bleeds. And so sometimes I have to wrestle with like where I'm at, and I have to kind of reset my vision on how blessed we can be even in the tough times, right?
So what we focus on expands.
Yeah.
And so I keep reminding myself of this because I can very easily get wrapped up in the yuck, right? That's easy to get focused on. And so I've had to really retrain my brain to start thinking more positives, and what we focus on expands. I tell myself this every time I have like a negative thought. And
right.
It's like, no, what we focus on expands. So we serve an abundant God and money is flowing and whatever it is that we're doing. My marriage is amazing. I mean, I actually am married to a really amazing person. And so I'm grateful for the positives, and then every day waking up and saying the things that I'm grateful for, and then going to bed in that state of gratitude,
right?
And just trying to stay focused on all of the positives, because you have so many positives just like I do.
Yes.
I mean, we have great families and amazing kids, and you have grandkids that are amazing. And so just staying in that gratitude, and then trusting and surrendering to whatever it is that God wants us to do, and what we focus on expands. So I'm going to focus on all the positive things because I can't really control the negative stuff right now, and I can react or respond. And so my response is I'm just going to appreciate all of what I have before me.
That was my takeaway this morning. My takeaway, I made a post and I said, usually, and having been a broker and a manager and a team leader and all the things for so many years, I've done a plethora of Mondays, whether it's emails, whether it's podcasts, whatever it's done. I've coming in with your Monday motivation. Hope you have a productive Monday. And this Monday, my post was, I hope you have a convicted Monday. And that didn't come from a place of condemnation or judgment, because but in conviction comes gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
and growth.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
There's so much growth.
That's exactly what I said in my post today. It leads us to our calling.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what I was sitting with. And I think that that's where, and I don't even know if the word that I had was anxiety, because ultimately I think I've done a really good job getting, and I kind of like you, knock on wood here, but I think I've done a really good job getting to the place of surrender when it comes to anxiety. I think it was really conviction, to be honest with you, because it was like I was sitting there and I was just realizing all the areas I can be a better steward. I can be a better daughter. I can be better with money. I can be a better business owner. I can be a better team leader. There's just so many areas I can be better with my health, right? Like I don't want to lose weight for worldly. Like now it's an obedience thing and an idolatry thing, right? So I was sitting with that and I realized I have my children, right? Like I have my children. my children are here. We are alive. We are together. And I remember when I used to, I remember it was, sometimes we forget. Sometimes we're in dark places and then we leave those places and we forget the heaviness and the reality of them. But I remember thinking, God, every day outside of a hospital room, I will work in a way to attempt to show my gratitude. And I have not stayed that course.
I think it comes and goes.
Yeah.
Comes and goes where we're at. I mean, when life is really good, how often do we kind of just forget all the simple things like being grateful, and when times are good, we don't we don't focus so much on God, but then when times are tough, we're like, where are you, God? Like, I need you, and God wants us to be dependent on him, right? He wants us to, even in the good times, give that gratitude and show all that stuff. And so,
well, and sometimes he has to get our attention. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I tell especially my boys.
So can we just shift things now? Like,
right.
Snap,
but
snap.
Yeah, and I think so. And that's what I said this morning. I said, conviction is powerful. Conviction is powerful and it's transformative. So if you can sit in conviction, I mean, I am not, please hear me out. I was literally, Jordy was like, is this seriously happening this morning? She was like, are you really going to vomit? I was like on the verge of vomiting. But I'm telling you, what I was sitting in was conviction. I was sitting in conviction. And you know what? Here's a fleshly jab for me I got to bring in a fleshly jab here. But I don't hate it. It's interesting to me how God, puts us in these, he gives us platforms and then he says, go talk about this stuff. And it's like in my head and in my heart, I know the walk and I know the relationship and I know the place I'm at. And then it's so funny because I feel like he puts me on and then he's like, okay, now we're going to make you like you're going to expose all of the things that need work and not all of the things that you've accomplished. Right. And so that's my flesh that wants everybody to know I'm like, actually great with God 90% of the time. Like we're not always having these conviction moments, but anyways, I just love it. I love it. And I think that when we can realize no matter where we are with God, our relationship is going to continue to have new experiences. And if I would almost aim to, what would you say to this? I would almost say if you are not continuing to go through experience, and I would even venture as far as saying tough experience with God, and you say you're a believer, I would almost say there's something wrong because I don't think anybody arrives. I don't think anybody gets to the point that they've got it together to the point that they're not experiencing God's transformative love.
So I follow somebody else on social media and he talks about like, it's how you respond and react to all of the stuff, especially being a believer, all the stuff that's thrown at you, and it's how you react to it or you respond to it. You have to know, being a Christ follower, there's going to be stuff. There's always something. I mean, it's whether it's business, it's family, it's, whatever it is, there's always something, and you have to put out fires constantly. And so if we just surrender to the fact that there's always something, not in a negative way, but it just kind of like when you have that mindset shift, it gives you a more surrendered thought process, right? And then you're not, what is a fight and flight? I never get that right. Whatever.
Fight
yeah. So you're not in that state anymore, and you're actually proactive, right? And change or the negative things or what we think is negative, it really doesn't have to be negative. It's what our minds create it to be, and our minds tend to think to the negative. That's like a proven statistic. I can't remember what the number is right now, but most people think like when something happens that it's actually, oh my gosh, and then it puts them in trauma and PTSD and it has all that stuff. But then really I think that I've had a lot of really crazy things happen in my life, and from childhood. Quick story. So my mom is deathly afraid of dogs, and I'm like, oh, why are you so afraid of dogs? And she's like, well, if you would have been attacked by a dog, and if you would have seen your brother or your son get attacked by a dog, then you would understand. And I'm like, I was the one that pulled the dog off of my brother, right? And I was attacked, but I don't have those same fears.
Right.
But it's my response, and God's really given me a gift, and I've really taken it as a gift that I don't live in that fear, and I just trust God so much that I know that all these things happen but he's at the other side.
Right.
And so he's protected me. So like I was like 12 when the dog attacked and was like 150-pound mastiff. I was like 90 pounds. Tiny thing, and this big giant dog attacking my brother. And I picked it up like Superwoman and threw it in a room and, had to break its jaw. Right. Like that's only God could have walked me through that. Like I couldn't do that in my own human flesh power. And so God's always been in everything. And it took me a long time to realize like God's really in everything. And so just shifting my perspective that we have to go through things, right?
Yes.
Like we can't give glory to God if there's nothing to give him glory for.
Correct. Well, that's when you experience him, right?
Mhm.
I mean, that's why I said, like, I think that conviction was there because I was remembering the experiences he's brought me through. I mean, and I've shared before, my fear of death was, I mean, I couldn't even say the word death. I couldn't even say it without, just getting nauseated, and I would be awake at night, and I would be waking the household, and I'd be in full on panic attacks. And it wasn't until I took that to him and he walked me through that, and I experienced him transforming me, that, it's in those transformations and in that relationship with him. So I love that. I think that that's really powerful. I think one other thing too is you're saying that you've really learned to trust him, and so you don't live in that fear.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and this could be a whole nother topic for another podcast episode, but I think another thing that's happening to us right now as women specifically, and well, as believers, I would go as far as saying as believers, is that we are emotionally tying ourselves to truth. And I'm hearing so many people, especially spiritual leaders, water down God's truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because we, again, are not being in charge of our emotions and our choices and our behaviors. So we're we're doing it in a, I guess, what would almost be a positive way. Like we're trying to soften God's truths. We're trying to dilute things. We're trying to apologize or say, I wish it wasn't this way, or I wish it wasn't that way. But I think it's because we're attaching our emotions to God's truth. And so I just would say that if you're somebody out there who's wrestling, because we've talked about this a lot. We are lovers of people, right? And we don't ever want to not love people. But if you are not controlling your emotions, your behaviors, and your actions that are God's truth because of your fear of other people, I mean, I think that that's part of what we're talking about today is learning.
That's a good one.
Right? Like, yeah. I mean, we have to, so we're talking about emotions and choices. So how many times are we allowing our emotions and our fear of the world thinking that we are whatever? We could probably come up with a million things, right? A million things. Like, I mean, just yesterday, I shared something on my story that was like a video music clip, and it had a couple negative words. So I said, excuse the language. And I wasn't even saying like I'm standing behind this full clip. There was just 2 or 3 lyrics that I was like, whoa, those 2 or 3 lyrics spoke to me. And it was only like 10 hours before I deleted it because the messages started coming in with the different opinions and some of them that I needed to sit with. But it was like, I couldn't even stand by that choice because I let emotions get there. Oh. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think we got to be careful on what we're watering down. And I think we probably have our next podcast topic.
Well, thank you.
Well, we're getting claps. We're getting claps from the homeschoolers. So also, this is Homeschool 101. We decided. No, honestly, we made it through our first one together. Both of us, I think, are still sitting here trying to figure out like how to get comfortable. We did laugh though because I was going to message Crystal and say, hey, let's dress similar and wear similar colors so it'd be complimentary. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then we both walked in green.
So yay, go.
And here's the funny thing. So we're working on some stuff that we're not ready to share yet, but stay tuned because we will be announcing in the next couple weeks. But green is kind of where I feel like we're going. So it's interesting.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Not that I give too much away. So thank you as always for tuning in. If you didn't watch the live stream or you want to go back and you want to listen to this, remember you can catch us anywhere that podcasts are, Apple, Spotify, all the things. And also, please leave us a review, not only in our live thread. It's a thread, right? Not a thread.
No, not a thread.
It's a tread.
Thread.
No, it's a thread.
Thread.
Okay, got it. But also on our podcast, because that does help us. And it is our heart to get the world out and help to stir biblical truth inside of you so that you can take more kingdom ground. So thank you for tuning in today. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Now the awkward moment of one of us having to get up and
How do
turn
we
it
do
off.
I have no idea how to do it.
Thanks, Amaya. Amaya's clapping for us.